Yo guys, what is up? Moxsy or Path of Exile 2 video, and today I've got another build feature for you guys. This is from Colby. He's a good friend of mine. We've been playing ARPGs for a while. He's a former Path of Exile content creator, and we featured his build guide on the channel a few weeks ago for his Titan build, and y'all seem to really like that. This is his most recent Monk build, and he's gonna break down everything you guys need to know about the build. Real quick, I did want to mention that one of the reasons I wanted to feature this build is I know there's a lot of Monk builds already out there, but he's doing something really interesting with weapon swapping, where he's using Falling Thunder as this like AoE skill to just absolutely blast in maps, and he's doing a bunch of power charge generation to really amp up his Falling Thunder ability, which you'll see doing that like big cone attack. But because power charge generation and Falling Thunder isn't great for bossing, he's utilizing a weapon swap tech so that he's got a full second weapon that's specifically set up for blasting bosses, and then he gets the best of both worlds, where he's not compromising anything for AoE clear, but he can also really focus in on his single target, and he's got a ton of survivability. Build looks great, so I'm going to have him break down the rest of the build. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It is a bit of a longer one because there's only going to be one video about this build, so it includes not only an endgame section, but also leveling tips, a leveling skill tree, and more. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll let Colby break it down. Take care.
Yo, what up boys? It's Colby Cheese back again for another guide on my latest character, the Monk, who just completely destroys all maps, one-shotting with an auto attack the entire screen, and whenever necessary in a breach, I can blast the entire screen, multiple screens away, with crazy Falling Thunder projectiles. I'm incredibly tanky. I'm able to sit inside of Pinnacle bosses at max difficulty, almost never getting touched due to my acrobatics, evasion rating being so high, and it has been my favorite build so far of the three characters that I've played. So I'd love to give you guys a showcase of how everything works, how you can set it up for yourself. Everything from leveling, gems, passive skills, and a couple of different variations. I've tried and tested everything on the Monk that I can think of, all the different abilities. Feel like what I'm doing right now is essentially the culmination of a lot of different testing and just what feels right. So there are pretty much two sides of playing the character. For me, the most fun is just running through maps and destroying breaches as if they didn't even exist in the first place. And of course, you'll have the maps with your actual bosses in it, and then your Pinnacle fights. So I have two setups that I use for that, and they don't really require any crazy amount of setup. I know I've seen some people completely swap out all of their gems every time in order to throw on multiple bells, things like that, which is definitely something you could do. For me though, it pretty much just comes down to having a weapon swap where one side is doing a little bit more damage, where I just swap over to my second swap like this with my weapon, the Pillar of the Cage God, and then that will enable my more single target heavy damage build versus the main hand, which is more for map clear and just quality of life, where I have additional power charges in order to have a longer duration on my buffs and more projectiles firing out from my Falling Thunder. And that is really the simplest way to put it. So whenever I am running around a map, I'm going to build up to 7 power charges, and that gives me more than a minute long buff on my charge staff. The charge staff is what gives me a really cool auto attack, long range that will, as soon as it touches any kind of white mob in the map, just completely explode the screen. This makes clearing very enjoyable, especially with a massive amount of attack speed that I get, both from the passive tree and from the Pillar of the Cage God scaling my attack speed. And then whenever there is maybe a really tanky rare, which is actually quite uncommon that I don't just automatically one-shot it with my left click anyways, I can just use my Falling Thunder with any kind of built-up charges that I have to get an insane amount of additional damage, since Falling Thunder scales more multipliers on top of every single power charge that you have. And then if there is a breach with monsters coming out of multiple directions and all over the place, the cool thing about Falling Thunder is that for every single power charge that you have, you will shoot an additional 3 projectiles that fly out across the screen and will ricochet off of terrain, just completely obliterating everything for screens away. And this is essentially the bread and butter of how the build works. So the other part of what makes this build so strong is just how incredibly tanky you are. And this is, I have to say, one of the best parts of it, because after playing on my warrior, which my original goal of playing the warrior was to be a super strong, tanky, just standing in the middle of mobs, killing them type of character. Unfortunately, that just was not the case, because armor in this game freaking sucks. So this character, I decided to go full acrobatics evasion. And as I showed earlier, 80% evasion with acrobatics means that you will almost never get hit by any attack in the game. And now you will get hit, but when you do, you have a very large amount of energy shields to provide you that little bit of barrier, as well as whatever health you can pick up, since you are stacking some strength for the Pillar of the Cage God to function even stronger. Let's take a look at some of the other benefits that you get for just going pure evasion, especially at least on your chest. But it's not just your chest that you're going to go full evasion on. In fact, I've got a full evasion chest, but I have energy shield for my helmet and gloves. So let's talk about why that is. First off, there's a great trick. Since you are an Invoker, you've got Lead Me Through Grace, which is such an incredible ascendancy for you to take, because what it does is for every 15 evasion rating, you're going to gain 1 spirit. Now, I actually have, it's kind of funny, 1954 evasion on my chest, pretty good. Gives me exactly 130 additional spirit, which is, as you can see, just enough to hit 0 spirit with the auras that I'm currently running. Now, you don't exactly need this specific number to be able to make the build function, but I'm able to run like an additional aura. In fact, I could literally just turn blink off. The build will work perfectly fine. And I'm not normally running blink in every map. I use it as kind of a utility for some boss fights, or especially in the Sanctum. Sometimes I'll turn that off and I'll throw on other supports onto my existing auras. The main things that you want to have, and these are going to be the ones that provide you your defensive layers, are Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer. Ghost Dance just means every time that you get hits, you're going to consume a stack to gain some of your energy shield back. And then Wind Dancer will do a big blast whenever you get hit and push enemies back, while also providing you a more evasion multiplier on top of what you already have. So this is incredible. In fact, sometimes I'll get hit with Wind Dancer and I'll just one-shot the whole screen. By the way, it's actually kind of crazy, because if you have stacks of your Herald of Thunder up, it'll actually apply that Herald of Thunder attack to your Wind Dancer, and that'll set off the chain reaction of the dual heralds blowing up the screen. Pretty cool. But yeah, then Combat Frenzy, this is just how you get your stacks from freezing enemies. It'll convert into power charges when you use Resonance, and then that's how you activate your charged staff. And oops, didn't mean to take that off. Yeah, there we go. And then, so yeah, and then you need the 60 spirit for the Herald of Ice and Thunder. So that's it. And then the other part of going for full evasion is that you'll take this node right here, Spectral Ward. This will actually provide you another 1 energy shield for every 12 evasion on your armor. So you'll see I'm actually a pretty high amount of energy shield right now. And that's because of this node helping out. But what I've also done is I've taken Subterfuge Mask. This says for every 1 energy shield on my helmet, I get another 2 evasion rating. So rather than taking any evasion on my helmet, I just went out and got as much energy shield as I could afford on a helmet. And that converts directly back into more evasion for me while providing a bigger energy shield for the build as well. So everything just kind of works together to provide as much acrobatics potential as I can. You'll see I've got this bestial skin on the passive tree. It just doubles the evasion rating. Well, not really doubles, but it gives you 100% increased from your body armor. It's a huge node right there. And overall, everything just kind of works together to provide a very tanky experience due to the fact that you're just simply not getting hit. And spells in this game, or like elemental damage in general, feels to me like the most dangerous thing. And if you know anything about how the accuracy formula in the game works, if there's a mob attacking, or if you are attacking from very far away, your accuracy actually drops off quite significantly at long range. So whenever there are enemies shooting projectiles from further away, they actually have a much lower chance of hitting you, which is kind of crazy because this accuracy amount is calculated not necessarily assuming that that's the case. Now, the other part is it's even better than that, because on my charged staff, I also run blind. So what that means is that if I look at the tooltip, you'll see they get 20% less accuracy rating against me whenever they've been hit with that blind. So it's insane how tanky you become with all of these things added together. And then whenever I do eventually take a hit by, getting enough evades, the way the game works is if you evade multiple times, you'll eventually get hit by something. And that's just how the calculation works. Rather than waiting for the energy shield to come back naturally, what I'll do is I will just use a health pot with Eternal Youth, and that will just, instead of healing my health, it'll just go directly to my energy shield, which is great. So if you're just starting off the build and you've got like less than 1,000 energy shield, you probably wouldn't want this. But once you get a few pieces of gear together, it makes a massive difference, and you'll find this is a much better pickup than healing your health bar. Okay, so I'll spare you the small details of reading off every single skill gem that I have equipped, since I do have a full max roll planner of this setup, but I'm just gonna go through how it all works together and show you the passive tree and what you want on your gear to get everything set up, as well as kind of just talk about the things you wanna focus on first, in terms of like if you're budgeting for setting this build up so you can get started as cheap as possible, and then what you should work towards. Okay, the big one for map clear are just, I'm sure you've seen this all over the place by now, especially if you've been watching any of Moxsy's build. We're doing the dual Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder setup, and this is going to give you that massive screen clear potential. So this is actually insane, because I've seen people having problems running element threshold maps. I can run an element threshold of 120% plus and have zero issue killing mobs with the dual Herald of Ice and Thunder setup. And the reason for that is because I'm stacking as much flat damage as I possibly can on all of my gear. Now I do have these like Hand of Wisdom and actions, which give me more lightning damage, However, I'm actually just running these gloves because they have additional cold damage to my attacks. And then I've got a little bit of cold damage to attacks on this ring right here. So that, or I guess just those two alone, are all the cold damage that I need on my build, in addition to just the freeze buildup that is added from the tree and a couple of different places. I've got freeze buildup from Essence of the Mountain, as well as freeze buildup on these couple of staff nodes right here. And these are insanely high freeze buildup. I also took a little bit of freeze buildup across a few of my jewels, just where it showed up. And I'll actually put a link in the builder to a search that you can put together to look for some jewels that work perfectly great for this build. But just to say it, I pretty much am just looking for anything with crit chance or crit damage, and whatever kind of staff damage I can get, as well as magnitude of shock or magnitude of elements. Magnitude of shock and elements is crazy strong for doing pinnacle bosses. It doesn't really matter for anything else, but I just recently started picking those up so that I can do the max difficulty pinnacles a little bit quicker. You'll notice the higher you stack that magnitude of shock, the better. And in reality, that's also where the weapon swap comes into play for my build. The weapon swap, I try to get as much additional magnitude as possible on my build. So it goes to, like, I use less power charges on a single target setup in favor of grabbing things like Wildstorm, which is max lightning damage. I take this node up here, which is more magnitude of shock right over here. And this one is just more attack speed, which just helps you attack things faster. That's more damage as well. So the next thing is you're going to have your charge staff up as much as possible. Well, pretty much all the time, to be fair. You get this persistence buff, plus for every single power charge that you have, it'll increase the duration. So when I'm doing the map clearing setup, it's going to be for over a minute in duration with all of the power charges plus the persistence. And then against bosses, it'll be just under that as well, which is totally fine. And I just throw all my utility onto the charge staff, like my blind and additional shock, things like that. For the single target, whenever I'm attacking pinnacle bosses or actual map bosses, we throw down our bell. For the bell, I'm mostly doing utility as a priority. I want to make sure that I do not run out of mana, so that I can just continuously attack bosses and I don't have to, spam potions as much. So I use Font of Mana as well as Soul Thief to help my mana stay as high as possible. For any additional links, you'll want to have overabundance, so you can throw down those multiple bells. That's the main thing, as well as super critical for more crits. But yeah, that's more or less how the setup works. In terms of skills, we've got our auras running. Blink is only utility for doing Sanctum, things like that. And of course, I'll just remove Blink and throw on a Falling Thunder, which gives me 60 more Spirit back. And whenever I don't have Blink on, I can just throw on more support. So I'll put something like Cannibalism on there. Definitely Herbalism helps for just regaining more of an energy shield whenever you do get hit, whenever you pop that ultimate life flask, so that is nice. Now for the skill tree, some of the big parts that will provide you big bonuses to your damage are things like Harmonic Generator. This gives you crit whenever you're hitting a shocked enemy. That's essentially always. And then you get more magnitude of shock with those crits that you inflict. I'm taking as much crit as I can around the tree. And you'll see this big cluster of crit right here. This is huge. You also get crit just from, the node I was talking about earlier. The one with the storm allows you to consume, like, let's say you consume 1 power charge, it'll act as if you're consuming 2. This is great for both consuming that buff as well as for throwing down that Falling Thunder and shooting off multiple projectiles, especially if you just haven't fully built up all of your power charges yet. I have this little cluster of power charges that is not on a weapon swap. I always have these because as long as you've consumed your power charges recently, you'll get up to 60% additional crit damage bonus. That is a really large amount. So definitely keep that one on there. Resonance, this one is, of course, how you build power charges due to the combat frenzy, where anytime you freeze or electrocute. I don't really run electrocute anymore. I used to, but I realized that things were just not really getting enough electrocute buildup. You kind of would want to take a lot of electrocute nodes, and to be honest, I don't really care about that. I just focus on freeze buildup instead, and that works perfectly fine for me. And then we've got all these crit damage nodes, these crit nodes here, and you'll see for an anoint, let's talk about the anoint. I'm taking the Tainted Strike node, which I think is down this direction. Yeah, this is a crazy good an anoint. It's not even very expensive either. I think the most expensive part is the little blue one, but that's not too bad. And you get 25% crit chance as well as 30% additional magnitude. So overall, I believe my magnitude goes up to around 60% or so on my shock chance, if I remember correctly. And that is just straight up 60% more damage multiplier. Now, finally, as for maps with, I think whenever I get my maps, I am around 75% monster damage resist if I have the 50% on the map due to the way my atlas works. And so rather than trying to invest a large number of points into penetration, I just have Sunder my enemies. This is going to give me the ability to just ignore elemental resist whenever I crit. And I crit around 30% of the time, I think it is. So that's what I'm looking at right now. And this is with Pillar of the Cage God, which has no additional crit on it. Let's take a look. Yeah, 32% crit chance. So this is totally fine for me. Don't have any issues with resist maps. Don't have any issue with element threshold maps. Anyways, let's go through the gear, as that's going to be, of course, the big part. Now, you see that I've got some things in here that are expensive, but I want you to know that it is not necessary to start off this way. I just kind of built it up over time as I cleared maps and built up my currency. So Ingenuity is the big one that you're going to notice. That's the most expensive thing that I own across any of my characters. However, you do not need this belt. It is going to boost your stats quite significantly once you do get it. So I think this is going to be the chase item that you want to go for. But what you really want to focus on is getting your chest first. You need to get yourself as much evasion rating on the chest as you can afford. So look for this first. Again, I have the literal exact number that I need to run the auras that I'm running currently, as well as the clarity, support, and then one more. So you can get just slightly less than this and run everything that I'm running. However, if for whatever reason you find a pretty good chest that's a little bit less evasion, that's fine. But I do recommend trying to get the highest evasion number possible, because that will not only give you the spirit that you want, but you'll get more energy shield out of that as well. The next thing you want to do is get yourself a good energy shield helmet so that you can just boost your overshield as well as your evasion rating even higher. And outside of that, just make sure you get as much flat damage. You're going to want to have cold damage, at least on a ring, but you can get it on your gloves as well. What I've done is I've searched for lightning damage and cold damage, and I was able to pick these gloves up here pretty cheap. I think for like 5-10 exalts, honestly, it wasn't that much at all. And the rings were kind of expensive because they are using all res. I was using different rings initially before I got the Ingenuity, and it was totally fine. But the main thing you want to do is just make sure you get at least one flat damage roll, and then after that, you want to get strength if possible, or pretty much the big one for Ingenuity anyways is getting all res, because this will boost your stats so that you don't need to have resistances on some of your other gear. So for example, my amulet, this is my stat stacking amulet that I'm using, which I cannot afford an Astra Menace. So I bought this one instead, and it just has a lot of intelligence, all attributes, and strength. this was totally fine for me. If you can find something similar to this, you'll probably get the most benefit. And of course, Pillar of the Cage God, the great thing about this is that this is one of the cheapest weapons that you can get for the most value. And I've tried to look for some staves that were just like straight up flat physical that you can scale, and it's going to be like 20 to 50 divines for a crazy staff, and the damage is really not that much better, I don't think, because I put some staff on before, and this Pillar of the Cage God with the corrupted implicit of additional lightning damage just ends up being an insane amount of damage because of how all of the stat scaling is work. Now, I know that you can probably look out and see that there are people playing the Gimlin Legionnaire. And of course, Gimlin Legionnaire gets more bonuses for like fully stat stacking. But even with just what I've got, 200, 200, and then like 280 on strength, this is more than enough for what we're trying to do here. So overall, that is the setup that I'm running for gear, focusing on your chest and your helmet, and then getting your resist where you need to be. You'll notice that my lightning is just slightly undercapped. I'm not even capped for LE weakness maps, but honestly, I just don't care because my evasion rating is so powerful right now. Well, leveling this character or any character in this format that I'm going to show you is it's funny because it's just so strong that every single boss in the game, starting from literally the beginning all the way until the end, it's a joke. You will have the easiest leveling experience. In fact, I'm leveling every character with this setup from now on, and I'm not going to go into like a full leveling guide or anything, but I did record some leveling footage. Well, I forgot to do it on this character, but I literally leveled up a witch with the same exact build, and it was insane. So let's just go over that real quick. I just want to give you an idea. I put together some items here that I'm using on all my characters. And so it really just consists of essentially grabbing that Pillar of the Cage God, which you can equip at level 1. And then you put on as many, bonus stats as possible. So there are a couple of leveling uniques that you can throw together to make your damage just go crazy. And one of those is going to be like Meganord's Girdle, has up to 50 additional strength. You can throw on this thing right here. It's called a Gray Make, which has a ton of triple stats. The only problem with that is you lose those stats every single level. So it's good all the way up until around level 30 or so. And then you swap it out for this Black Sun Crest, which will just boost the stats by a percentage that you have going on at the time. And then after a while, I'll throw on this Fox Shade. It just gives you move speed and dexterity. For gloves, you can use these North Paws. That's just flat damage and some additional like crit. But I like to swap those out at level 6 for these, what are they called? Jarn Greepers. And these give you attack speed, life, and flat damage. So that kind of carries you for quite a while. And then, of course, you just want to have move speed boots. I throw on these Luminous Pace until I'm able to put on some other stuff that I find. And what else do we have? After that, just kind of whatever you can find with flat damage in terms of your jewelry slots, flat damage and stats. So I just have random jewelry that I've found or picked up for a couple exalts here or there with flat damage, like Blackheart Ring thrown right away. And you can throw together, I found this ring was like 4 to 5 cold damage to attacks, and this is super good. You wouldn't think so early on. That's not a large number, but it is. It's huge. And these Briar Patch boots, these are crazy. At level 11, you can get, I got these corrupted ones, which are actually pretty crazy because they corrupted extra move speed. What else do we have? I think that's probably it for unique. Oh yeah, eventually I throw on a Ghost Wraith because that'll convert all of the health that you get from strength stacking into just a big energy shield, and that makes it very unlikely that you'll ever die. Generally around cruel difficulty, that's when you will switch up and want to upgrade some of your gear, get a little bit more resist. So if you're able to just Well, it's mostly just your jewelry, though. Grab a couple of rings with, let's see, where are they at? I probably need to clean this out, but I've got a couple of rings with some flat damage on them and additional stats, which are a little bit higher level. Oh yeah, here we go. This is my level like 48 and stuff like that. So yeah, here's a little 26 ring. This one's insane. It's got flat, cold, and lightning. And also, I don't know, I used one of these two, I think. Yeah, this one here, level 48. Yeah, this one's crazy. 24 cold and 39 lightning. For leveling up in the campaign, this is great. You're literally running dual heralds blowing up the screen while leveling. That's what I'm trying to say. It's pretty much all you're going to need. Now, the final part that makes it great is once you hit level 28, you can throw on this Crest of Ardora and your weapon swap with shield charge, and then you just fly through all of the zones in the campaign. You don't really need to stop and smell the roses. You can just keep on shield charging until the next area. Just kill rares, magic mobs, big packs of mobs. You don't necessarily have to kill every single thing along the way. But that is it. Now for the gems, it's pretty much what you're going to be doing in the in-game anyways. It's dual heralds. You got Herald of Thunder and Ice with the same setup where you're using, you're converting some of your thunder damage into ice damage and vice versa. And then your AoE clear skill though, this is the one that's a little bit different. I actually will tend to run Stormwave with Upheaval. This one actually gives you a lot more clear size essentially, and then you can pick that up, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else is the same as what you would run in the end game. You got your charge staff, your Tempest Flurry, and of course you'll have a bell for the single target damage. Overall, that pretty much covers everything from leveling to the gems, the passive tree. I do have a lot more details on like every single gem that I'm using, as well as the passive tree and what you might take early on versus the end game, past level 90, etc., on the max roll page itself. So be sure to check that out. Also leave a comment if you have anything that you want to ask. I'll be reading the comments, and I will be making additional update videos also on my channel, youtube.com/ColbyCheese. Hopefully you guys really did enjoy this. I had a lot of fun playing this character and making the build and testing everything out. So if there's anything else that you would like to see, I am totally down to do it. My next character is a witch. I've already got her leveled up, and I've been experimenting with spells. She's the demon form, and I'm having a great time there figuring that out, but that will be later. So I'll see you guys around for the next one. Peace.
Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Huge thanks to Colby for letting me feature his build on the channel once again. And I will catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.